Got a special one for you guys and girls today. Got Kobe from Patriots Goal on to help me and Reason preview this game. What is up, Finn fans? So pre-recorded, me and Reason, the starting lineup, sat down with Colby in our series where we sit down with the opponents and talk about the games coming up. So we're going to get into that, but real quick, I do have to shout out today's sponsor, and that is Sleeper. Go check them out. Fantastic fantasy app. I use them all the time, especially with the Pick'em League. If you watched yesterday's video, fantastic app. You can do the over-unders on so many cool things with the receiving yards, touchdowns, receptions, all that stuff. Go check them out. Use the promo code DDW. You get 100% on your first $100. So go check them out. But other than that, let's jump into the conversation with me, Reason, and Colby. And I'll see you tomorrow previewing this game. Oh boy, Miami needs a victory. Like usual, stay classy. Offense up. We got my guy Colby, Patriot Global, on here. This is episode 2 of the starting lineup, where we have an opponent or a fan, sometimes 2, this time 1, from opposite teams to talk about the matchup that is going on Sunday. Me and Reason versus Patriot Global. I don't know if this is going to be a real big battle. I feel like this is two teams fighting with their hands behind their backs, just headbutting each other. Just to jump off, how are you feeling about your Patriots? Because it really seems like you guys are going in an opposite direction than the Dolphins are. So how do you feel? Obviously, you lost to the Raiders. How are you feeling going into this game?
I think there's just a lot of uncertainty is the biggest thing. And I think you came into that Raiders game not necessarily expecting a win, because week 1 can really show anything. And I think we saw that from the Patriots in 2024 when their backs were against the wall. They went on the road week 1 and ended up beating the Bengals, but they went and ended up winning 4 total games in 2024. So it didn't exactly say much. But I think with this new Mike Vrabel team, you understand that. Look, it's a brand new system. It's a brand new identity. They turn over more than 50% of their roster, which is just absolutely insane. Obviously a new head coach, but a new offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels, first time play caller and defensive coordinator in Terrell Williams. So I think we expected them to play better, more clean football straight off the bat. But I think that that's something that we're now learning. It might take a little bit of time. And I think that the team that we saw week 1 is not going to be the team that we see come the final week of the football season.
Yeah, that was something that I always brought up, that, it takes a couple weeks for you to pick up a new system, and a lot of people, I got pushback on that actually. People were telling me like, oh no, variable this and variable that. I'm like, Reason, how are you feeling about our Dolphins, man? We got stomped out by the Colts. Do you think that was an anomaly, or do you think, oh my God, what are we gonna do this season?
Well, I mean, last week when we did episode 1, and I have egg on my face because I had us winning, and when I did the Colts podcast before we went live, I said, I think we're gonna like stomp you guys. You know what I mean? There was a lot more expectations for the front 7 than what we saw. People are gonna talk about how disappointing Tua was, and you can make the argument the front 7 was just as disappointing. I think with what Colby just said about, his team and how he's going to see a different team by the end of the season compared to week 1, I think that's what you're going to see, especially on the back end with the Dolphins, because I think they're still trying to figure it out. They clearly had an idea of playing a lot of zone, and that didn't work out. I mean, they had guys who were, like Storm Duck was forgetting basic fundamentals of cover 2. You know what I mean? So I think they're going to figure out the strengths and the clear weaknesses of the secondary. So maybe by the end of the season, you look a bit sharper on the back end. But overall, the biggest issue for me was we saw a continuation of last season pour over into this season. And what worried me about the defense allowing a score on every possession was in week 9 last year against the Buffalo Bills. They didn't get a stop for the last 45 minutes of the game. So we had kind of got a taste of that before under a Weaver defense. The problem was this, in week one, I don't think the Colts are anywhere as feared as the Bills are. So you get away with the Bills and not giving up a point, and not taking a stop in the last 45 minutes of a game with them. But I think, allowing a score on every drive against the Colts is kind of inexcusable. So I'm not too hopeful. I mean, y'all were talking about Vrabel. My issue is, I think the Dolphins have a more talented roster than the Patriots. I don't think many people would argue that. The problem is they've got the better coach. Can Mike McDaniel out-coach Mike Vrabel? And you're not going to have me sitting up here saying, yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah, that to me, like a lot of people pinpoint, like you said, the pass rush and Tua and this and that. We were just not prepared, and that comes down to the head coach and how do you get 12 men on the field on offense and the timeouts used, and at one point Tyreek Hill was going through his motion, you're going from right to left, and Tua had to stop him and send him back and then hurry up and clap because it just takes too long. And you talked about the secondary and how it was struggling. It kind of got a little bit better when Rasul Douglas got in. They almost had an interception, so maybe that will help us. But talking about injuries, Patriots are kind of banged up. I thought the Dolphins were really banged up. I know your starting corner in Gonzalez is banged up. Do you have any updates on what's going on with him?
Yeah, so he didn't practice yesterday. We haven't heard anything about where things are currently at. But before the injury report came out, like we were all expecting, Gonzo's about to be back. And I understood why he didn't play week one. Like in hindsight, you look back and like the defensive game plan they had for him, sending out all-out blitzes, the amount of blitzes they had, they blitzed like 40-50% of the time, which is absolutely insane to do that much week one. And a lot of times there were broken coverages in the back of the secondary, but that was because you didn't have your number one cornerback in Gonzalez. So everybody was playing a step above realistically where they should be, and it bit the Patriots in the butt. But the Raiders wide receiver core really isn't all that. And if you look at what Mike Vrabel said when he was hired by the Patriots, it's, I want to take advantage of bad football teams, and I want to win the division. I want to be competitive in the division. And if this team really wants to be a dark horse playoff team, which some people said that they can be, it's going to be really, really important to win those divisional games, especially with where the division is currently at with the state of the Patriots, the Jets, and the Dolphins. Obviously, the Bills are in their own category. And so kind of just going back here to Christian Gonzalez, you understood why he didn't play week one, because week two and the rest of the season was going to be a lot more pivotal than that week one matchup. But he posted a like cryptic Instagram story of him back at practice. And we were all like, okay, this is it. He's coming back. He ends up deleting it. And we're like, okay, like maybe he got in trouble for it. But then the injury report comes out and it says did not practice. And so that's the most updated injury report we have involving him. It's hard to imagine that if the injury report comes out later and he's not on it again, I'm not expecting him to play. He has not practiced since July 28th, since he went down with that hamstring scare in training camp. First day of pads, it was 11 on 11s, non-contact. He was defending Stephon Diggs. He got up under his own power. He looked fine, but unfortunately, hamstrings can just be a lingering injury. And look, one thing I can say is we're not very good against the Dolphins, especially in Miami. We all know that. We haven't won since Antonio Brown was the New England Patriots. Okay, that's how bad it's been, guys. I don't know if you know that. But the one thing I feel confident about is Christian Gonzalez is very, very good against Miami, especially going up against Tyreek. If they don't have him in this game, I think it becomes a lot more difficult to defend the motion that Miami runs. I mean, you guys run the second most motion behind the Rams, and just the speed you guys have.
Yeah, and we saw what happened with the Raiders. You guys got really like the Raiders. Like you said, like who's their wide receiver? You got Jacoby Myers, and then obviously you got Bowers. But then outside of that, it's like you guys are getting torched.
Yeah,
so
but am I the only one who doesn't have confidence with the stat he just threw out here? Because I mean, the Colts hadn't won a opening day game in over 10 years before we played them. So I mean, I'm not really sitting here being like, well, yeah, here we go. Like, like
you feel good.
Fell for that one last week, not taking that hook again.
Oh my God! Talk about the jinx of all jinx. We haven't lost the game with Mike McDaniel as a starter 11 years. They haven't won, and then we get
you guys. I picked you. You guys, I picked you. I was expecting you to win. You know how bad I looked on the AFC East roundtable? Like, you know what?
Man.
Well, damn, you guys got blown out.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And you want to talk about blitz rate? The Dolphins had the #1 highest blitz rate in week 1, but we had the 3rd lowest pressure rate. So,
Wow.
I mean, not good over here. Not good at all.
Reason going off talking defense, since we're talking about the Patriots defense, Bradley Chubb coming out and saying pretty much the whole defense was freelancing. Like how again, coaching, how do you let that happen? You had Sealer who disappeared. Chubb at least got a sack, but it's like, what is your thoughts on the fact that Bradley Chubb comes out and says, oh yeah, we're all kind of just doing our own thing?
Okay. A few things here. Number one, for all of us in the camp of Anthony Weaver should be the interim head coach if you fire McDaniel, Sunday was not a good look, and that was an even worse look when I heard that. Number two, when we were down at camp and things were being said and passing around, I remember I said to you and Sean, guys, I'm worried for the first time this off season. I was worried about players and coaches in that building not being all in like Ramsey was. And I mean, you talked about the unpreparedness, the level of unpreparedness. Here's the thing. The level of unpreparedness we saw in week 1 looked like a team that's not about to make the playoffs and is out on their coach in week 16, 17, or 18, and we're in week 1. So, again, I go back to this. I don't have very much faith. It seems like there's players and coaches out on this coaching staff, specifically Mike McDaniel, and it's having a trickle-down effect. And that's when you start getting players going into business for themselves. We had it last year with guys who were clearly out on McDaniel that they let either walk in free agent or they cut, like Poyer, like all in. You know what I mean? They were clearly in business for themselves, and they're no longer here, and you're starting to see it again.
Yeah, and talking about injuries on our team, the list is long, but Darren Waller, like, at what point are we going to give up on that? That adventure of I don't know, Colby. I don't know if you've heard, but Mike McDaniel came out week 1 and said, "Oh, he's not playing. He could play next week or not, or he could play the week after or not. At this point, we're just taking it." Yeah.
So I don't know. They have no idea.
They got DeLucci on the practice squad, who actually did really well with the Giants in preseason, and he's just sitting there on the practice squad. So it's like, at what point do we look at this and go, just move on? Like, can Mike
McDaniel said yesterday that we might not even see in this season, and we might just have to move on and do what's best for the team, was what he said.
Why did you bring him back in the first place?
Exactly.
Guy didn't play football like all of last year, and you bring him back last second thinking like, yeah, he's going to be in football shape. Like, no.
This.
They had no
83 in Madden. We're good, boys. That's what they said.
They had Noah Fant in the building. Let him leave. He goes to Cincinnati and signs a $2.7 million contract. Like, that's my reaction. I have no words for that. It's funny, like, we just, both of us, just down bad on this team. But
I'm angry for you guys.
Looking at this matchup, the way I see it, right? And there's the whole, like we were talking about week 1, never won, never lost, yada yada. Tua has never lost to the Patriots. Mike McDaniel has never lost to the Patriots. But there is that conundrum that Mike Vrabel has the Miami Dolphins, and especially Tua Tagovailoa's number. We cannot beat Mike Vrabel when he was with the Tennessee Titans. Going into this game, what is your confidence level that you can beat Miami?
Right now, I want to say it's 50-50. And that 50-50 is certainly generous. Like, I had this pinned in as a loss for the New England Patriots. And if you guys win week 1, I'm here confidently telling you, yeah, until you can actually beat the Miami Dolphins, especially in Miami with Tua, I'm not going to say that you're able to do it. But I don't really understand where Miami is right now. Some of the moves they're making with personnel, and we kind of just broke that down. And even furthermore, some of the things you just told me makes me believe that even more. And just what I saw from Miami week 1 is that they just don't have this identity. And I feel like so many people's takeaway was like, oh, the Colts are legit. The Colts are this real playoff team. Danny Dimes is back. And it's like, are they back? Like, yes, they got some playmakers, but I was more surprised at the lack of quality play by Miami. And I think it all just comes back to you don't have anybody in that building to keep this team motivated and have this identity and have this motivation. It's not from Tua. It's not from Mike McDaniels. And I just feel like this Miami team is lost. So I'm going to say it's 50-50 right now because it could go either way. And it's still hard to know who exactly the New England Patriots are. I think I have a good idea on the philosophies they're built behind and what they want to be. But can they be that in just week 2 after a lot clearly did go wrong for them in week 1? Like you said, it was hard for Miami to beat Mike Vrabel in the past. And that was because Mike Vrabel was able to play well on defense, right? And I think that's something that in the past the Patriots have struggled with, is having a quality defense, a consistent defense against Miami. And I know that Mike Vrabel, he's going to want to run cover 2. He's going to want to try to take away the first read for Tua. You know, he's going to try to get him outside the pocket, not keep him clean, and try to take everything over the top, essentially away from him, and force you to beat us underneath and with the running game. And I think that's something the Patriots haven't done very well in the past. But on the other side of things, too, again, the Patriots haven't beat Miami with Tua in Miami in how long? But at the end of the day, this is a brand new regime. So the statistic that we've thrown out there, that's not exactly an indictment on who the New England Patriots are now. Again, over 50% of the roster turned this offseason. Brand new OC, brand new DC, brand new head coach. So it's going to be our first look at what this new regime of New England can do against the current state of Miami.
I know it's only week 1 and it was one full season last year, but how are you feeling about Drake May? Like his progression, where he is? Do you feel good? Do you feel, because obviously he's young and he's very talented. What's your thoughts on Drake May so far?
I've been a little bit disappointed this offseason, and I think there's some areas he's taken that next leap. And when you look at Drake May, he had the biggest potential. And I don't think that's a hot take. He had the most potential out of all quarterbacks in that 2024 class, to where if he hits his ceiling, he's going to boom. He's going to be a top 5 quarterback, and he could be the best quarterback in that draft class. But he could also be a bust because that ceiling, or that floor rather, wasn't very high because of how young he was. People forget too that even in high school, he was very limited with the amount of football that he played because of the COVID times. You know, I mean, he's even younger than I am, and I'm only 23 years old, which I think says a lot. So I think there's still a lot to develop there with Drake May. I think the biggest problem in college was that footwork, was the mechanics that led to inconsistencies, especially with accuracy. Last year with Alex Van Pelt, I thought they did really, really well with that. Based off of what we saw this offseason in training camp, there were inconsistencies with the footwork. More specifically in week 1, inconsistencies with the footwork. So the accuracy is inconsistent. He's overthrowing guys, even on that interception. I know he had pressure in his face, but it was the mechanics, it was the footwork that are making him inaccurate. And so I think, like you said, it's not the talent level that's a concern for me. It's not that he's not making the right reads or his eyes are in the wrong place. He's doing all the right things, and he has the potential as a mobile quarterback to extend plays and really excel in this league. But it's going to come with making sure you hit the easy reads. If you cannot dink and dunk in the Josh McDaniels offense, you can't hit a 10-yard cross or a 10-yard slant. Like, you're going to have issues. You are going to struggle. And I think that's what I want to see from Drake May, is his ability to take care of the football, consistently hit open wide receivers, and just have those mechanics sound as the season goes on. So I'm not hitting the panic button yet like a lot of Patriots fans are. But I think that, again, he just needs to work on the mechanics, needs to work on the accuracy, because right now he has everything else.
So, reason, as Dolphin fans, Tua looked like butt. That's me. That's me being nice about it. He looked bad. 3 turnovers, just sailing passes. Like he did have some nice passes here and there, but obviously that's going to happen. He looked bad. And then he got real defensive in his pressers, and he looks like a different, like he looks aggravated. And then him coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm going to make sure everyone's here on Tuesday for film." Like, who's like, my man, you didn't play great either. How what's your thoughts on Tua, where he is right now? Again, obviously it's only week 1. He can have a huge bounce back. Like, he could pull a Joe Burrow. He's not gonna, where he played horrible week 1 and then has a huge bounce back. What's your thoughts on where you're at right now with Tua after seeing him week 1?
I know people are worried about where he's at physically right now. And I think, you know, we had a lot of people say, well, maybe the concussions and the injuries have caught up to him. I think the main issue you're seeing, well, if you're talking about him physically right now, I think the main issue you're seeing right now is when he signed that big deal, right, the Dolphins stepped in and basically ended his partnership with Perform, and they ended his partnership with 3DQB. And, you know, we're talking about two different athletes with Drake May and Tua Tagovailoa here right now. And with the injuries he's had to his body and the type of athlete he just was, that's the type of guy where, let's talk about the Patriots. You know, you saw Brady working on his body into his 40s, right? You know, Drew Brees to play late in his 30s, even with that shot shoulder, had to work on his body. You know, working with 3DQB, and 3DQB, what keeps the mechanics crisp. And I think right now you're seeing the result of he no longer has that fine tuning, because you can say what you want about Nick Hicks and Perform, but they got to his body right.
Yeah.
And now he no longer has that. And, you know, I think another thing was he looked unprepared. You know, if someone said to me, hey, Tua looked like he was going through the motions out there, you probably wouldn't hear much of an argument from me, because I was seeing a lot of things. Like, we ran a levels concept on that. You remember that Malik Washington to the left sideline where he couldn't keep the feet in? Well, if you watch that play, it's a levels concept to the left side, and the underneath out is Jalen Waddle, and Jalen Waddle does a stab step at the top of his stem, totally sells the inside move. Defender bites, and he's wide open underneath, and Tua takes the harder throw. And this is stuff we're just not even used to seeing Tua do. Like, I remember there's one time where we had three receivers to the left. It was a 3-by-1 set. Three receivers to the left. We had Waddle to the right. Waddle's manned up, right? Like, you can see off the line of scrimmage, they're probably going to press him a little bit. It's going to be, man, it's okay. If you want to lock in on that, let's hope he's got a go route. This guy locks in on it when you got two corners on the other side, so you got numbers to the left side. It doesn't even look that way, and Waddle's running like a curl. And it's like, dude, like, you want to take that one-on-one matchup if you're going to stretch them vertically. I'm not looking for like an 8-yard curl. If that's what that is to that side, you got to look to the left here, and you got to see the coverage, and you got to see you got numbers to that side, and we had men open. There was just simple mistakes that, you know, post snap that we don't see Tua make. And that's why if someone said he's going, and sorry, pre-snap mistakes too. That's why if someone said to me he's going through the motions, I wouldn't argue that. And that's worrisome to me.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about players and coaches being out on McDaniel. After what I saw on Sunday, is Tua Tagovailoa one of them?
Yeah. And great, you know, the one where he took the shot in the back, like free blitzer, points to the other side. Like,
yeah, but wasn't that the same play where he stopped up Tyreek? He's the only one.
That was that play. He kind of stepped up into the pocket. The one where he got blown up, there was no play. Like, literally, he points to his left. The blitzer came off the right. Austin
side,
Jackson didn't, and he just gets blown up.
Austin Jackson didn't even move his head.
No.
If you watch his head on that, he doesn't even move it.
So it's
that's
and like
the one where Tanner Connor broke out, and even a chip would have helped, right?
Yeah. And like you said, if he's just going through the motions in year 6, that's a problem. You know, if the wheels fall off, man, at this point, let them. There's some good quarterbacks in this draft. That's all I'm saying. And I know, you know, Cole, obviously, if you don't know, Colby's part of the AFC's Roundtable, a fantastic show you guys need to go check out. And I obviously watch it. You know, I'm on whenever they ask me to. Great guys over there. And I was watching, and Dan Mitchell was like, you know, I hope you guys don't move on from Tua, but you know, if things keep happening, man, we're gonna move on from Tua, and then all of a sudden
we're either gonna be riding the Nuss bus, we're gonna steer for Mateer, or we're gonna be cellar dwellers for sellers.
I'm leaning towards cellar dwellers right now. I'm liking the way sellers.
Dude, Mateer is rising for me, dude. Mateer, after what he did to Michigan last week, Mateer is starting to rise up for me to that.
Maybe. You see where we're at
already
right
looking at the quarterback.
Where we're at right
now. Those mock drafts.
We're supposed to be like, Dolphins are gonna beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
We're over here like, bro, Sellers and Fireman. We're taking down notes.
And then I'll give you Josh Dobbs.
Exactly. Last thing I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to ask for record predictions. We're just, you know, you talked about your confidence level being 50-50. Going into this game, what do you think the Patriots need to do to beat the Miami Dolphins?
Well, number one, it has to be to score more points. Like, you can't score 13 points
Or
in
8.
that general range and expect that you're going to win football games. It's what Bill Belichick tried to do in 2023. It's what Gerard Mayo tried to do in 2024. You need to score points. And even if you do end up losing games, as long as you're scoring a lot of points, like, look, wins obviously matter first, but you look at the Jets. Patriots, the Jets, the Dolphins were all tied right now in terms of record, but the Jets scored the most points. Yeah. That's why they're second. That's why the Patriots are third, and that's why the Miami Dolphins are fourth. So scoring points is absolutely pivotal for several different reasons. This offense has to get going. It's an offensive-minded league, so definitely score more points because, look, despite what happened last week, I feel confident that the Miami Dolphins, at minimum, are going to be able to put up at least 13 points. So definitely that, but I think the coverage unit does have to be better. Last week, believe it or not, the coverage wasn't as bad as it ultimately seemed. It's not like we were getting gashed all game long, but it was mainly outside of the opening drive there defensively. But outside of that, it was really the second half that the Patriots got killed on. I mean, they had 9 plays where they allowed 20 yards or more. And if you want to have plays of 15 yards or more, it was 10 plays. And you just cannot win football games like that. Like, just allowing Geno Smith to sit back there, you're able to sack him, you're able to get these penalties. He's in 3rd and 20, and then he sits back there, not even in a clean pocket, but the secondary can't hold up, and now he's converting on 3rd and 20. Like, the defense just cannot do those types of things. Now, the pass rush looks really, really good. Milton Williams had over a 20% pass rush win rate this past week, had 8 pressures. Harold Landry also had 8 pressures. He had 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. So the Patriots really liking to blitz. They did unique things, cornerback blitz, safety blitz. Robert Spillane, the linebacker, was blitzing a lot. So I think that the pressure is going to be there on Tua, which I think is something they've had issues doing in the past. But you got to take away his first read. You got to make sure he doesn't have a clean pocket. Make sure he's throwing on the move. And if they can do those things and at least limit the run game, which they were able to do with Ashton Genty, I think that's how the Patriots get away with this win.
Reason, what does it take for the Miami Dolphins to beat the New England Patriots?
Get off the bus and play the game. That's where we can start. I think you're going to have to see one of those classic bounce back games from Tua. I think that's going to be a thing. You're going to have to run the football. I mean, I'm totally expecting to see a bunch of too high shells. And the fact that we're into year where this is what teams are going to counter you with, and you're still not able to establish a run underneath with a guy like Devon Achane. Maybe get Ollie Gordon involved a little bit more here too. And then defensively, that front seven's going to have to get home, right? You're going to have to take advantage of, inexperience on guys like Will Campbell, you know what I mean? And Jared Wilson, you know what I mean? You're going to have to, we've got a good enough front seven where you should be creating some problems for them up front. And if you don't, and you we saw Daniel Jones look like Andrew Luck last week.
Yeah.
And, this will be the week that, Drake May finds his footwork and goes off, and Trayvon Henderson will live up to all the preseason hype and the fantasy hype. This is the type of week where you just can't let that happen, man. Defensively, you're just going to have to, that front seven's going to have to be a lot better because we're so dependent on it. And on offense, it starts with the coach and the quarterback. And that offensive line, though, that right side. Yeah. Oh, my God. So, and we've had games where Milton Williams has been a wrecker against us, right? We've seen these games before. So, there's multiple issues that are going to have to be corrected on offense to win. And then on defense, I think it just starts with on both offense and defense. It starts in the trenches. Games are literally won and lost in the trenches, and that couldn't ring any truer for what our offensive line looks like now and what our defensive front looked like last week.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. Colby, thank you so much for giving us the time to stop by. We will definitely be seeing you week 17. Where will these teams be? I have no idea.
A lot better.
But be sure to go check out Colby, subscribe to his YouTube channel. Also, again, check out the AFC's Roundtable. Great stuff over there. And we will see you next week over on Reason's channel. Have some Buffalo Bills guys on. I don't even know if I want to do that one, Reason. I don't know.
Just kidding, guys.
I don't know if I want to do that one. But that is it for episode 2 of the starting lineup versus. We will see you guys next week.